Hey everyone, it's definitely been a few weeks since I've made a Motorcoach World video. If you follow my other YouTube channel, you probably would have guessed why. I've been behind the wheel of a Motorcoach quite a bit for the past month. I actually just released my 3-part video of my bus trip to Branson, Missouri. If you feel like checking that out on my other channel, I'll put the link up here and down in the description box below. One more piece of news before we get started on today's topic. This is from a fellow friend and YouTuber. His channel is called Trucker John. Well, not for long. He sent me a video clip. Check this out real quick.
Hey James, and hello to my fellow Motorcoach World geeks and extremists out there. Thank you for having me here, James. You're an amazing channel. I really love you. Awesome content. And I thought, you know what would be a better way to share some news than on your channel, because you have inspired me basically to do YouTube and the type of work I do. So I wanted to let you and all of your subscribers know that I have upgraded from a truck driver. And guess what, guys? Guess who's back? Guess who's back into the Motorcoach game, the Motorcoach industry? That's right. I am no longer Trucker John. I am now Captain John.
Finally, another Motorcoach YouTube channel. I am so excited. Go check out Captain John's channel. He already has some content on there from his over-the-road trucking adventures. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on his channel so that you guys can catch all of his upcoming Motorcoach adventures. Now on to today's video. Hey, what is going on, all you bus nuts, geeks, and enthusiasts out there? Welcome back to another episode of Motorcoach World. My name is James. When I first came on as a driver at Peoria Charter, the company had a much different fleet of motor coaches compared to what we have now. Between 2011 and 2016, Peoria Charter operated around 60 coaches, which about 30% of that being Prevost H3-45s. The majority of the fleet consisted of MCI D models and J models, and aside from that, there were 4 Van Hool C models and 2 Setra S417s. As a driver, one of my favorite coaches to drive were the Prevost H models. Now, while we had the Prevost H3s in our fleet, I logged a lot of hours and miles in them. I prefer driving the Prevost H models over any of the other make and models of motor coaches. They definitely weren't the newest coaches in the fleet, as most of them were 2000s and 2001s, with one of them being a 2005, but it had a ZF transmission, which I didn't quite like that one as much. But as old as they were still a very smooth ride, and they're also very roomy on board for the drivers and passengers alike. And most of all, the luggage space below decks was huge. I mean, you didn't have to like crunch down to crawl in there and put luggage. You could literally almost stand in a Prevost luggage bay. But by the end of 2016, all of the Prevosts in the fleet had been sold off. During those years, the company went through a huge fleet update, and we replaced all of the aging Prevosts with newer MCI J models, as well as a few more Van Hools. And for the rest of the decade, I logged most of my hours and miles behind the wheel of a MCI J model. But at the end of 2019, Peoria Charter purchased a brand new 2020 Prevost H3-45. It was definitely nice to see a Prevost carrying our colors again. The coach was designated as 206, and it was domiciled at our Peoria facility. So since I'm based out of the Urbana facility, I didn't get to see or play with it much. I definitely never got to take her out on any revenue-earning trips. In April 2020, at the height of the pandemic, I got to drive 206 back from Chicago to our Urbana facility. We had left it at our partner bus company's lot up in Chicago just before the pandemic hit. So that was really the only time I got to drive the Prevost. So I didn't really get to know it that well. Well, this all changed about a month ago when I got to take 206 with passengers down to Branson, Missouri for 4 days. Again, as mentioned earlier, I made a 3-part vlog about my trip on my other channel. Feel free to check it out. Again, the link is going to be up here and down in the description box below. But many of you in the comments of my Branson video wanted to know what I thought about driving a Prevost H3-45 again. So today, I'm going to give all of you my thoughts on how I felt about driving the 2020 H3-45 after not driving one for almost 5 years. I'm going to list out all the things that I love and hate about the new 2020 Prevost H3-45. Now, before I start triggering a bunch of Prevost diehard fans out there, I want to make sure a few things are mentioned. First of all, some of you call it Prevost and some call it Prevost. This seems to be a very touchy thing amongst Prevost enthusiasts. I got used to saying Prevost because that's the way I heard it pronounced the most. Now, in my years in the Motorcoach business, I've been to many bus expos like the American Bus Association Expo, UMA, even at BusCon. And yes, there is such a thing as BusCon. Well, even the Prevost rep there called it Prevost. Now, I'm not saying that's right, nor am I saying Prevost is wrong. I'm just saying that I don't really think it matters that much either way, so please, no triggered comments from those of you who get your undies in a bunch every time you hear someone say Prevost.
Don't you tell me what to do!
Also, some of my opinions are going to sound a little biased. Keep in mind that these perspectives are coming from someone, me, who is very much used to driving MCIs and used to being in the driver's seat of a MCI. So some of the things I list that I may not like about the Prevost are not necessarily bad things. It may simply be because I'm just not used to it. The list of love and hate items that I'm about to reveal are my opinions and my perspectives, and I want to make that clear in hopes that I don't trigger a bunch of Prevost enthusiasts out there.
What you're doing here is unethical. It's immoral. I'll fight it.
Whether you're driving a Prevost H model from the late 90s or a late model Prevost from 2020, not much has changed over the years as far as body style, the dash layout, and driver and passenger cabin. Other than a few minor cosmetic items like the headlights and the wheel fenders and a few new indicators on the dash panel, the design of the Prevost H3-45 has pretty much stayed the same over the years. To me, that says a lot. Prevost H3 design is a tried and true solid Motorcoach design, so if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Now, I am a licensed pilot and love everything about aviation, and I just have to point out that the startup chime on the 2020 Prevost H3-45 sounds like that of a Embraer E170 series jet starting up. Not sure if that was intentional or coincidental, but based on several other similarities between the Prevost and certain commercial airliners, I have a suspicion that one or more of Prevost coach engineers are aviation enthusiasts as well. The start switch on the Prevost H series was something I really had to get used to. There are 3 positions that you can switch the start lever to. Turning it clockwise will put the coach into accessory power position. This will turn on most of the environmental systems as well as cabin lighting without turning on the engines. Turning the lever clockwise again will start the engine. Turning it back counterclockwise in the vertical position is the shutdown position. This will turn off all systems and engine of the coach. And turning it further to the left will give you accessory power as well. Well, when shutting down the coach by flipping the switch to the center position, it can very easily be pushed out of that detent and into the accessory power position on either side. There are also no markings near the ignition to show the driver which position is what. So for me, that's not very intuitive, and I guess I'm more used to the power switch rocker buttons that the MCIs have that clearly label what position of the button does what, as well as leaving the actual engine ignition button being a dedicated button to start the coach. Also, in my mind, the off position should not be in a detent in the middle of 2 power positions. I feel like turning a vehicle off should always be the last position of a switch or turn lever where you can't accidentally turn it any further, thereby accidentally leaving something on. Now, I don't recall the older Prevost H series having these, but on the 2020 model, there is a vertical plastic sun visor that is attached to the left windshield post and runs the height of the windshield. For me, at least, I don't feel like it does anything. And I've tried to move it or adjust it so that it's not intruding into the windshield, but it's just not adjustable, it's fixed. I feel like this may be beneficial to some drivers in some situations that I have probably yet to encounter, but at least make the sun visor adjustable for when a driver doesn't need it. So if any of you out there know what this vertical sun visor's function is for, please let me know down in the comments below. As I mentioned before, the dash panel of the new 2020 Prevost H3-45 didn't change all that much from those built back in the late 1990s. The gauges and indicators and buttons are pretty much all in the same place. But one thing that did change is that Prevost made the backlight a nice, soothing orange color. At night, it's a pretty nice setup, but during the day, especially if it's a sunny day, I found it very difficult to see the dash gauges as well as the indicator panel. Sometimes I had a hard time reading my speed or whether or not my cruise control was on or off and what it was set to. Compared to the MCI's nicely lit digital dash, Prevost's dash was definitely harder to read during the day. Now, if you guys watched my Branson videos, you probably already heard me complain about this one. I love the fact that Prevost added the electric blind controls on the steering wheel. The buttons on the steering wheel that controls the blinds have a up arrow on top and a down arrow on the bottom. Now, for me, when I see a button like this, I tend to think that pushing the down arrow make the blinds go down, which it does. And pushing the up arrow would make the blinds go up, which would make sense, right? But it doesn't. Whether you push the up arrow or down arrow, it'll both cause the blinds to lower. To make the blinds go up, you actually need to double press the button. So while driving 70 miles an hour down the interstate, when I tried to raise the blinds, I ended up lowering the blinds even further into my line of sight, which for a terrifying 45 seconds, I frantically tried to raise them up again. Now, during my panicking state, I did find the other set of dash button controls that were present on older model Prevost. I'm glad they kept them in the same spot and that I remembered where they used to be. So I used those to raise the blinds up again so that I could see the road. Now later when I got to my destination, I had time to play around with the controls a little bit, and I realized that to raise the blinds from the steering wheel, you need to double press the buttons. Well, this is actually a really brilliant idea, Prevost, so well done on the concept. But I think next to the up arrow on the steering wheel, there needs to be like a 2X to show unexpecting drivers that to raise them, you have to double press. I mean, I get the blinds can only lower so far because there is a stopping point to prevent drivers from completely covering the windshield. But for taller guys like me, it completely blinded me while I was driving at high speeds, which may cause problems. Now, I can't count the number of times I've been asked by passengers how to turn on the restroom light on MCI J models. On MCI buses, there's no light switch. You have to lock the bathroom door for the restroom lights to turn on. On the new Prevost H series, the restroom lights seem to be illuminated by motion. As soon as you open the door or if you approach the restroom, the light turns on automatically. I absolutely love this feature. It takes a lot out of the guesswork, and it also leaves less touching people have to do on restroom services, making it more sanitary. Space on board a Motorcoach is always at a premium. Engineers and designers have to make every inch count. So when you have to open a restroom door, finding a way to make sure that it doesn't swing into the faces of other passengers is an important detail. The restroom door on newer Prevosts actually slide open and close. This was not the case on the older Prevosts, as they used to swing outwards. This is actually a brilliant move on Prevost's part, except for one thing. It's not very well labeled for the passengers. Passengers on board the new Prevost may no longer have to figure out how to turn on the light switches in the restrooms, but I've been asked by many passengers during my trip how to open the door. I mean, there are no indicators that the door is a sliding door, and passengers not familiar with the restroom door always try to pull or push on it. And when it doesn't open, some assume that it's locked, and some come up to me asking how they can use the restroom. So Prevost, maybe a little more signage on the door telling people that this thing actually slides would be helpful. Now this one isn't actually a positive or a negative thing. It's just something I've noticed for as long as I've driven Prevosts, older ones and newer ones. The cabin lights on Prevost H series coach buses have always been very dim. For me, I kind of like the way it looks. It seems to create a more comforting and cozy feeling. And I guess the passengers need more lighting. They can always turn on their reading lights. So for me, this one's kind of a thumbs up.
There are 4 lights!
Okay, this one drives me absolutely crazy. The cup holders on the Prevost H series have been the same for over a decade, and that's not a good thing in my book. The cup holder is a cheap plastic mold that pulls out from the right-hand dash. For one, they don't do a very good job holding your drink. One is circular shaped for cups and the other is square. I'm not sure why there's a square shaped cup holder. Also, if you do put your drinks in the cup holder, you end up blocking the driver's vent on the right side. Come on, Prevost, bus drivers definitely need to make sure that they have places to keep their beverages for those long trips, and they shouldn't have to choose between getting airflow or having a place to put their drinks.
Firebolt then!
And finally, the best thing about driving a Prevost H series, old or new, is the space on board. Prevost H3-45s have a much higher clearance height in comparison to its competitors. Prevost H series sits at a height of 12 feet 4 inches. For those of you in other countries, that's 3.75 meters. MCI J models have a height of 11 feet 10 inches, which is 3.6 meters, and Van Hool C models are 11 feet 6 inches tall, which is 3.5 meters. Because of this increased height, Prevost H3-45s have a much roomier interior. The luggage compartment is one of the largest in the motor coach industry. The engine compartment is also extremely open, which allows for much easier access during maintenance. The dual level cabin and driver's area give the driver more space and a little bit more privacy, and it gives the passengers a much more open view out the front window. Now, when it comes to leg space, that's about the same in comparison to other brands of coach buses, but there's definitely a lot more head space on board a Prevost H3-45. Now, folks, I'd love to hear your thoughts on my perspectives that I've given here today. Do you guys share the same thoughts on some of these, or do you feel like I'm completely out of my mind? Either way, let me know down in the comments below. Just please try to keep them respectful. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, folks, if you're watching this, you are part of the motor coach world.